Well, welcome back to the Tub Fantasy Network. I am your host, Cross, with my co-host, Rhett, and we are here to cover next week's matchups, who stood out, who really just laid you an egg this week, as well as some other topics in today's podcast.
Yes, sir.
So, just jumping right into it, looking at those players that really stood out this week. Lots of good football, lots of exciting football for you CMC owners. Such as myself, was extremely pleased with that. Really just a boost you're waiting for, so he's obviously at the top of my list, just as a long way to return. Also followed by Dalvin Cook, also not really surprised there from him, dropping another 39 points in half-point PPR, those formats. But yeah, he's pretty unstoppable right now. I saw a stat where if he at this pace, he's looking to finish the season with 2,900 rushing yards and 2,900 rushing yards
at this pace on a 16-game season. So
right.
This was week 2, and he kept us going for 16 more games. It was ridiculous. I heard it as well. It's like 2,900 yards, like 1,400 receiving yards, like 40 touchdowns. It was
yeah.
ridiculous.
It was kind of like, so I think it was 2018 when Zeke had those same numbers, where he was just like, he's going on some stupid, some crazy high record-setting pace of play that's obviously not attainable, but you're really happy if you're a Dalvin Cook owner right now. It was a pretty slow week at the running back position, honestly, because outside of Dalvin Cook and CMC, it was just kind of a toss-up whenever you have Kalen Ballage as your running back 4 on the week with 15 points, and you have James Robinson and Jerick McKinnon bringing in the rest of the top 5, but just a really weird
shocked.
week.
I got like a Fantasy Bros email last night, I think, maybe early this morning, and it just has like all your players and where they stacked up in the rest of the week. And Josh Jacobs did fine. I can't really complain with how he performed. 13.3 points. Yeah, it is what it is. But that was like RB8 on the week. So after Cook and CMC, there was no one over 20 points. James Robinson was RB3. And then there was a lot of that like 12 to 15 range. It was pretty...
Yeah, it was an extremely slow week. Extremely slow week if you're banking on running backs. More running backs that we'll cover later on as we go into buying and selling some of these players. That's really it as far as running back goes. I mean, I think Kalen Ballage being in the top 5, top 4, much less, really says it all there. Coming in with, I believe he had 15 points and half point, which is just, again, maybe an outlier week, but with Justin Jackson going down and Austin Eckler, his return still projected around the week 12, maybe week 13 mark. We may see more of this. We may see more of the being free of Adam Gase curse that everybody is so keen on focusing.
Well, speaking of that, it's not a 100% success rate. I mean, Le'Veon Bell's on a better team, but he is droppable.
Yeah, I would agree that he's droppable. But I mean, if you're in these deeper leagues, these 14-man leagues, and you have a deeper bench with like 5 or 6 players, 2 IR slots, something like that, I don't know if you can really afford to drop him, because just the Chiefs have such a high-powered offense that all it takes is one injury to one of the 3 in the backfield. They're still using Darwin Thompson a lot more than everybody was expecting. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still like, he's fine. But he's nothing that you were expecting drafting him in the first round like a lot of fantasy players were. But I think
the problem, though, is that high-powered offense just funnels through Mahomes and Kelsey and Tyreek Hill.
Yes.
And maybe one other supplemental receiver. But it's just not – they're just not a backfield – they don't run. They're not a running team. They tried it. I'll give them credit. They tried it early on. Yeah. And they had some success with it, but their bread and butter is just slinging the shit of that ball. Oops. I'm not supposed to cuss on that. But –
Yeah, but I completely agree with you. Patrick Mahomes is really playing out of his mind. Maybe not back-to-back MVPs, but 2 out of 3 years potentially being the MVP on the season. It's really hard to argue against that. I mean, you paid him $500 million for a good reason, and Andy Reid is showing like, hey, it's like we paid him this much, we might as well.
We got to give that money's worth.
We need to justify why we're going to throw him. We're going to bring in these backs, and we're just going to not run the ball very well, so we can justify letting him throw 30 times a game.
In fairness to those running backs, though, the game was actually close yesterday. It was it came down to like a 60-yard field goal attempt for the game. But I mean, they had 12 total rushes on the day, and 2 of them were from Mahomes.
Yeah.
So
not super.
Tough. I don't know. I wouldn't be excited. if you didn't have Mahomes, Hill, or Kelsey.
Yeah, not super exciting from the Chiefs side of things. But I mean, speaking of Patrick Mahomes going around in the quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes obviously lit the world on fire yesterday, coming in at the quarterback 3 position, only being bested by Josh Allen. Kyle Allen did not have such a good day yesterday.
No, he did not.
Josh Allen and Kyler Murray, which Kyler Murray, if you have him, you have a running back and a quarterback in one position, so that just gives you basically an extra slot on your team, and he's really, really similar to what Cam Newton was able to do his first few years in Carolina. Really similar to what Lamar was doing last year.
So you can just expect him next year to not be worth his weight in gold.
Most likely.
He'll just be unusable.
Most likely. I mean, that's really enough to say about Kyler. He's lighting the world on fire.
He's doing what he's been doing.
Pretty tough.
Nothing different.
Pretty tough loss against that. A lot of questions around DeAndre Hopkins on whether, like, man, what was happening. But he got 4 targets yesterday, but he did get 4 pass interference called on him, which, I mean, if you count this as targets as well, that comes out as 8 on the day, which is still really good. A lot of the game is still being run through him. So if you have DeAndre Hopkins and you're nervous, he's still DeAndre Hopkins. He's
Miami
one of the best.
Also has a really good defense. So
absolutely.
It's not like the Dolphins of old. I don't know any of their specific QBs, and if they're like, I know they have Byron Jones. He hasn't been as locked down as he was with Dallas, but I mean they're definitely a defense to not take lightly. So that probably has a little bit to do with it. I'm sure you're seeing like some over-the-top coverage a little bit. I don't know if he was being shadowed or anything, but that can definitely sway some of those looks, especially when Kyler was moving the ball so efficiently without it.
Yeah,
he had like 4 total touchdowns, 383 yards. They were moving the ball fine. They just didn't win. Yeah,
that was a really fun game to watch yesterday if you got to watch it. And then coming in, bringing the last 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks, you have Drew Lock and Aaron Rodgers. Drew Lock, he's having good games. I'm not paying anything. I'm not paying any attention to it. I'm not really a fan of him.
That was shocking. When I saw his name pop up on that list.
Poor Chargers. They're just they're continuing the streak of being able to blow leads. Going to receive. I'm sorry.
They didn't play the Chargers. They played the Falcons.
Oh, the Falcons. Excuse me. The Chargers play. Chargers still had a heartbreaking loss against the Raiders. Yeah.
Yeah, but they were down that whole time. They weren't. They didn't like blunder that one. They just couldn't win.
Right.
Catch up, I guess. Drew Lock is weird. Like he did really well in the fourth quarter.
Lots of garbage time.
A week ago, and he did good to this past week against the Falcons, and the Falcons are bad. But they started off so terrible, so bad.
Yeah, it's their defense is a lot better than people give them credit for. That front defensive line is really, really stout against the running game. They've had some pretty not noticeable shutdowns, but they've had some good stands throughout the season. So a lot of people just think that they're a bad defense just because they can get torched in the secondary, which would be pretty indicative of being a bad defense.
Well, it took them forever to get torched in the secondary, though.
Yeah.
Like the whole first half, the Falcons' defense looked like elite, even though they aren't, and the Broncos just looked awful. Yeah. Tim Patrick had like 2 targets, and Judy didn't have much of anything till the second half, and then he lit it up. And Patrick, thank God, he got an end of the game, just kind of, I guess, garbage time catch. I wasn't watching that game at that point anymore. It was just not. But looking
at the Falcons, who would you expect them? So they did have a good first half. Who would you expect them to be weaker against? DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Russell Wilson, or Drew Lock? Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick,
right,
and KJ Hamler. But yeah,
What do you mean? You mean KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick? They're not the stud receivers and quarterback combo as comparable to Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf? Come on now.
Yeah, basically. So by Rhett's assumption, if you have KJ Hamler, go trade straight up for DK Metcalf. The owner cannot refuse. Yeah. Absolutely impossible for them to. Receivers were, again, it was a fun week, but it was a weird week. Richie James, someone who, I know everybody started them. He's a really hot commodity, tough
also,
to get on the waivers.
Also, if you have DK Metcalf, trade for Richie James.
Yeah, immediately.
He's just going to light it up again.
And yeah, Tyreek Hill having the best game of his year. Really fun to play against if you had him.
That was bound to happen though. Like that's just Tyreek.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then you have Devontae Adams, which if you have Devontae Adams, the first few weeks if you drafted him in the first round, like most everybody did, you were stressing, but now he is like tied for, I think he's leading the league in reception touchdowns. and he's like top 10 on total touchdowns of the year, just something crazy. Then you have DJ Chark, who started off the game extremely well, and then continued a pretty nice day overall, and then Curtis Samuel as well. But the two I kind of want to focus on right here are, we've talked about Richie James. What on earth is the San Francisco offense? Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, it's going to happen. But DJ Chark and Curtis Samuel, like what is happening in Jacksonville and in Carolina?
Yeah, I have them both in our buy-sell section that we'll get to later. I don't really know what to think about Curtis Samuel, especially with the other two receivers that they have in their, on their team. Like it's very confusing. Curtis Samuel gets carries, and I don't know. He's been solid the past 3 weeks. He's had like a touchdown 3 weeks in a row, I think.
Yeah.
DJ Moore is gone.
Yeah, I don't know.
Really?
DJ Moore is not. It is unfortunate, I think, because I still think that defensive coordinators are aware that DJ Moore is the best receiver on the field. However, with that, you get the top corners. You get the Jair Alexanders. You get the Xavier Howards. You get the Byron Joneses. So it's really tough for him to make that space. And then plus, like, Robbie Anderson, another phenomenal receiver. And then you have Christian McCaffrey and a new offensive coordinator. So it's, if you have DJ Moore, you're probably not going to get a whole lot out of him or get a whole lot for him in a trade. So you just kind of have to sit on him.
3 targets, though.
I know. That's
like Robbie Anderson had 13. Curtis Samuel had 9.
So it's,
I don't know.
The thing with Curtis Samuel,
he's kind of schemed out with Matt Rule.
Mm-hmm. The thing with Curtis Samuel as well is that he's getting a lot of runs, and they're using him a lot, especially in the red zone, a lot like Tyreek Hill, where they're sending him on the jet sweeps, and then Teddy Bridgewater's just tossing it to him, which is exactly what they did yesterday.
Carries last week.
Mm-hmm. So
yesterday, Curtis
Samuel, I think he's probably startable. Definitely flex worthy, maybe wide receiver 3. At this point,
you kind of have to start him at this point,
especially if CMC is going to miss some time. If he's out, I'd say you could, with confidence, start Curtis Samuel as a solid wide receiver 3, maybe a wide receiver 2. And then tight ends, I don't even really feel like there's a whole lot to talk about here. There's Travis Kelce, Jimmy Graham get a touchdown. Irv Smith had 2 catches for 2 touchdowns on the day, and that was.
It's really Travis Kelce and then the field. It's not even really close in that regard.
I would honestly
Evan
say
Ingram's put together a couple of decent weeks.
Yeah, he's been.
But
he's
other
been good.
than that, Gronk would be up there typically, but the Buccaneers just like
that's a whole other.
Buccaneers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was bad.
I will say one tight end that we're constantly seeing on this upper echelon of tight ends is TJ Hawkinson, and that's because Matt Stafford, with the lack of Kenny Galladay especially, TJ Hawkinson's a big dude, and last year he got a lot of looks. He got a lot of balls thrown his way. He's had a big issue with dropping.
Well, Stafford did go out this game.
Yes.
I don't remember what his injury was. Concussion, maybe?
I'm not sure
Shot
either,
in the dark,
honestly.
I'm not sure. So be wary of that. With Hawkinson, you'll probably still fire him up. Same with Galladay whenever he comes back. But the other people, I don't know. It'd be kind of risky.
Marvin Jones did get a touchdown. He had 2 receptions for 30 yards and a touchdown. So fine day for Marvin Jones. If you had him, you're content with him starting. Hopefully you weren't looking to him to be your moneymaker this week. But that's really it as far as standouts. There's obviously a lot of good players that had phenomenal games this week. Like Jerry Jeudy, for instance, he had a great week, but unfortunately there were a few more receivers that had better games. And as I start talking about Jerry Jeudy, perfect segue, perfect transition for us to go into our sell high and buy low portion of today.
This is kind of a weird segment to do for a podcast to your fantasy group about your fantasy group.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
I'm not real sure if we're going to continue this one. We'll give it a shot.
Yeah,
it kind of takes away any kind of trade advantage.
Yeah, but then again, how serious do you think they'll take us? But if you are not a part of our fantasy group, then listen up because we have some good stuff for you. So talking about Jerry Jeudy, first off, I think he's definitely a sell high. I'm not a fan of Drew Lock. I think that Tim Patrick has very much outplayed Jerry Jeudy this year. Jerry Jeudy has had an issue with dropping a bunch of passes, and they teams still look at him as the wide receiver 1. I don't think he's quite there yet in his footwork, his route running, his hands. Not like Julio Jones as soon as we saw him come out. Not like Amari Cooper when we saw him come out. Not even like Calvin Ridley. And so I think that you can probably sell him off unless you're in a dynasty league. If you get
all of those are Alabama receivers, by the way.
Yes, which is the correlation I was trying to make there. And so if you have
ridiculous.
If you're in a dynasty league, if you're in a keeper league or something, and you're able to keep him for a very, very low round or for a very, very long time, I would go out and trade him because I think he will be that guy. I think once this Broncos offense gets it together, I think they're going to be really good.
I agree. I drafted Judy with that expectation, and he just didn't really do much. Mm-hmm. He put up a few stinkers in a row. I mean, he would get some points, but he just didn't look – the games I'd watch, he just didn't look – great. He was having a lot of drops. And I think he'll get there. He just wasn't there for me at the time. And I mean, he's performed. He's getting a lot more targets, a lot more receptions now. But I don't know if he's going to keep it up. Tim Patrick has looked better. He didn't necessarily yesterday. He got the touchdown and a couple of targets, but he's just been, like you said, kind of outperforming him. And I don't think Patrick's necessarily a good long-term receiver either, but for the time being, he's done fine.
Very young core for the Broncos. So Jerry Jeudy, not really looking to hang on to him. But, I mean, if you have the depth, he's obviously someone that you would like to stash. Next up is Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju has put together a few good games. Formerly looked at as having an extremely high floor, but really popped off with a touchdown yesterday. And just a really good game against this porous Dallas defense.
Yeah, that was a weird game. That was such a weird game. Dallas came out firing. They were competitive. Garrett Gilbert looked really good. I'd say he looked really good for being Garrett Gilbert, just pulling him off the street. Pittsburgh was kind of muddling around, and they just looked like they weren't at all. It looked like they looked past Dallas, which is fair. You definitely can just kind of look past them. They've been bad. And they ultimately did end up winning the game. Pittsburgh did. But second half, Big Ben and company turned it around, and Juju put together a nice little day, but at the same time, so did James Washington, and I don't know what Claypool's stat line was, I don't remember, but Deontay Johnson had like double-digit fantasy points. Their running backs didn't really show up, but...
Yeah, weird day for the Pittsburgh running backs, but Juju, I don't really expect him to keep this up. Again, like just like Brett said, lots of mouths to feed. I mean, you have one of the strongest receiving cores in the league right now with Washington, Juju, Johnson, and Claypool, and then a lot of times you'll have James Conner coming out of the backfield, catching passes, getting touches, and so would not look to that. And as plus with the Steelers defense, they're going to be so stout most of the time that they're not really going to be in these negative game scripts to where they're going to need to be passing the ball.
That's true.
So if you can get off of Juju in this game and get something really good out of it for a desperate fantasy owner, definitely capitalize on that.
That is true.
And so we talked about Curtis Samuel earlier. I think right now, whenever I made this original list, I thought he was a candidate to sell high, but I think with CMC being out, you could probably hold on to him for a little longer. But I do think once CMC comes back, I don't know how useful he's going to be because he's still the third fiddle in terms of the backfield. And that's where he's gotten all this work. He's gotten his work with these short goal line touchdowns on these jet sweeps. And so that's not to say that it couldn't
his touchdowns this week were receiving touchdowns.
Technically,
so
it was just like a
I guess they were pitches forward. That's fair. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So with Samuel, his sell high potential may not yield like immediate return. So you may sell him kind of high, and then it may be 1 or 2 more weeks of him still producing, which is okay because I don't think it will last with the Robbie Andersons and I don't know about DJ Moore. DJ Moore's still probably going to do fine. I don't know. But CMC will be back. Mike Davis has been fine. But yeah, his may not be immediate in terms of like, yes, we shipped him off. Now he'll fall back down to earth. He may stay at that level he's been for the past few weeks, which has been a top 24 type of player for fantasy.
And speaking of Christian McCaffrey, if you haven't been keeping up with the news, so Matt Rule did come out and say that he is day-to-day with the speculation that his x-rays are already back, and if something came back with a confirmed fracture, they would have released that to people, but right now they're looking at it and they're projecting it to be a grade a grade 1 AC joint sprain. So probably going to sit out this week. But I mean, it's all going to be a pain tolerance thing. If it's a grade 1, if it's a grade 2, they'll probably sit him out for maybe 2 weeks, let them get to their bye, and then go into fantasy playoffs strong. So. And then the last one I have for my sell high, or at least on my list, is DJ Chark. I am kind of going back and forth on this. I think DJ Chark, Luton really looked good in this. I mean, he was moving around, he was running well, he was throwing the ball well. I mean, he's not scared to just let it fly over the top, and he had some really good passes in this game. I mean, it's really easy to see in or if you just go back and watch even the highlights of this game, but. I think with this, DJ Chark could have potentially had the best game of his season because it is just a one-game sample size. But at the same time, I think DJ Chark is I think he could very well keep this up. But it's all dependent on how they treat Minshew when he gets back. But right now, the Jaguars did come out and say that Luton is going to continue to start while Minshew is recovering.
Yeah, I would sell on Chark. I've never been a Chark guy, personally. He's had a couple of good games this year, and then he's been just pretty meh outside of that. I don't expect this to keep up, personally, but could be wrong. Been wrong before, believe it or not. I don't like to admit that, but I have been wrong before. I have a couple more on my sell high that I don't think you had. Keenan Allen. I know he's had a lot of consecutive weeks. I just think the Chargers are gonna fall off.
Man,
they've been good and competitive, and Herbert's good, but they're gonna fall off at some point. I think they play Miami coming up. They play Buffalo. I mean, they have a pretty gravy schedule, but I think Keenan Allen is going to come down to earth a little bit more. He's had 3 really just stellar games. Selling high on that isn't going to be like he's going to be a bust and just come out and then drop sub 10-point games, because he still will probably have the 10 points or so at least. But the 17s and 20s that he's throwing up right now, I don't think is maintainable.
Yeah. See, this is where I think I'm going to have to disagree with you. So really two aspects in this. If you look back, Keenan Allen has always been a phenomenal top end, upper echelon fantasy receiver. Whether it's Phillip Rivers, whether it's Tyrod Taylor, whether it's Justin Herbert, he is going to get his. He's just such a good route runner. He knows how to get open. He's extremely fast, and he has phenomenal hands. So I think Keenan Allen is really, really good in that regard. And I think that as long as Herbert keeps just slinging the ball, I think they're going to continue to find success. And the defense is just so banged up that they are going to have to continue to play in these negative game scripts. And so I think Keenan Allen's really good. And I also think the reason I think he definitely probably can't fall into the sell high category is because he's playing such good football right now, such good fantasy football. What are you going to realistically be able to get with him? Are you an upgrade from
that's fair. That's a fair point.
An upgrade from him would have to be like a Devontae Adams or
it would be some kind of
Hill.
trade package. There's no way you can get some kind of.
So I think that's where the hardest part for that sell
that's
high.
A fair point. Is trying to come up with some sort of trade.
If you have Keenan Allen right now, then I would be very, very happy because regardless, he's getting the most targets in the game. There's no one else that Herbert's really throwing to. Mike Williams had I think 6 receptions last night, and he even came up and he was injured. He got banged up a little bit, but he's walked off. He walked off under his own power, but it is still something to monitor. But I do think, man, if I had Keenan Allen right now, you're gonna have to pay a pretty penny to get him off of my team.
Okay, and my last sell, he's not a sell high, he's just a sell, and that's Zeke. I just wouldn't. I would just try to get rid of him.
Would you trade him for Richie James?
I mean, no.
Maybe a little KJ Hamler action?
No. I mean, I would just try to package him up with something if possible, and just try to get him off the team. I don't have any kind of trade ideas in mind when it comes to that, but just watching him play and watching Pollard play last night, they were just 2 different players.
Yeah.
Pollard has more 20-plus yards runs on this season than Zeke does. Zeke was he was a little gimpy with the hamstring, but he just doesn't look motivated to be playing on this team right now. And I mean, he's on the team. He's cost them $90 million, so he's their guy. I don't know what the deal is, but
see, here's what
he had 18 carries.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
so
he got 51 yards.
I think with this, I think it's a lot of what you see with kind of what you saw with Jonathan Taylor last week. And I know comparing Ezekiel Elliott to Jonathan Taylor is absolutely blasphemous, but hear me out. So with Jonathan Taylor, you know that you're pretty much getting the run, only the run, whereas he actually did get 3 receptions yesterday. And you look at Jordan Wilkins last week. Jordan Wilkins he wasn't making these like elusive cuts or anything like that. The holes were just massive. And so I think a lot of that is transitioning with Tony Pollard. It's like, hey, if Zeke is not in the game, we're going to kind of sag off and expect Tony Pollard to either catch the ball out of the backfield or for them to just air it out. And I think that's where Tony Pollard is just getting his big chunk and big yard gains. I do think Zeke is still one of the top running backs in the league, and I think when Andy Dalton comes back, there's going to be a better game flow, a better sense of normalcy, and Zeke will pick it back up. I mean, the talent's got to outweigh the opportunity at some point.
Well, like, how long does that take? Because it's been 3 or 4 straight weeks since Dak's gone out of Zeke just not really existing.
But
and yesterday so what you said about Tony Pollard. Pollard had 1 catch, Zeke had 2. Pollard's catch was for 1 yard. Mm-hmm. He had half as many carries and he had more yards than Zeke did. Yeah. So he was just running better, like straight up running better. And that's kind of been the case for the past few weeks. I mean, it's very possible Zeke turns it up later on, but we've seen him with Andy Dalton, and he looked the same. Mm-hmm. The only saving grace for his 1 week with Andy Dalton was a lot of pass catches, which is, I mean, it's salvageable with that for sure.
Yeah, I do think so there's still a lot of football to be played left. I think once Andy Dalton comes back, he will take back that starting spot, and I think once Andy Dalton is able to solidify himself as a quarterback, because you're not going to a game expecting your franchise quarterback to have a compound fracture in his ankle, so just kind of being thrown in there later on in the game. Did he have 1 or 2 weeks of full starting quarterback time before he got the concussion?
1.5. So he had the Arizona game was the full game, and then the Washington game was when he went out.
The Arizona game, that's just a tough game. Arizona is just one of the best offenses in the league. Really just tough to kind of get something going after that. I think that once there's able to get this chemistry and the flow of this offense back together, I think Zeke will salvage maybe a top 24, maybe top 15 season, just because, I mean, also it's what running backs are there to really take this top 15 spots. So I think the talent's going to outweigh the opportunity at some point.
They have a fairly tough schedule. I mean, they play Washington, which isn't a slouch. Baltimore, Cincinnati's a sneaky, decent defense, especially against this kind of offense. And then San Francisco and Philly. And the Philly front line or front seven's solid. I don't know. It's not an easy schedule coming up. The Dallas offense looks like garbage. Zeke looks unmotivated.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
I would agree with you in that. Moving on to our buy low category, and I know these are some of these are just kind of there for conversation. Some of these are there because I firmly believe that. The first one is one of those firmly believe categories. I just said him a second ago, but I am still believing in Jonathan Taylor Thomas. If you look at last game, so in 2 games ago, he did get out snapped by Jordan Wilkins, but that's because he went out with a low lateral ankle sprain. You look at this game, snap count was off just by a few snaps here and there. Jordan Wilkins was favored in that as well, but also it is a game script thing. They're not really looking to him to be that primary back. Jonathan Taylor had a higher yards per carry percentage than Jordan Wilkins. He had the touchdown. He unfortunately had that fumble, and Frank Reich was just kind of like, you know what, I guess that's enough for me to completely take your duties away. He had 2 carries. No, excuse me. He had 1 carry in the entire second half of the game. 1 carry for 1 yard, which is just absolutely insane. Jordan Wilkins is not getting it done, and the Colts have they're a fine football team. They have a good defense. They are solid. They held the Ravens for a long time yesterday. And I think that if Frank Reich truly wants to win games, then he's going to have to continue to run Jonathan Taylor-Thomas, and I don't think that is questionable.
We'll probably have this same kind of conversation every week, but I just do not have any kind of faith in that running back. I wouldn't want him on my roster, but yeah, they just need to pick a back and go with it.
Yeah,
this RB by committee thing just isn't working out for anyone. They've lost a few in a row. I think this is 2. They should have lost to Cincinnati. Yeah, I don't know. Just pick a horse and let him ride.
But what's crazy is so Jonathan Taylor, his whole mantra in college is like he's just gonna he's like the Energizer Bunny. He's gonna run, and when the defense gets tired, that's when he breaks off that 40-yard run. The Colts are giving him like 2 or 3 carries and pulling him out. Which I mean, I know college is different than the NFL, and you have to adapt. But I think that is
and
a big
the
thing
Ravens
for him.
are also a different kind of beast. They're one that's hard to compare or to use as a metric for any kind of running back because they're just probably top 5 running back.
But in the carries that Jonathan Taylor had yesterday, I believe that he looked really good, and I don't know why they pulled him after one fumble.
Because he fumbled.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's his one job is to hold on to the ball, and I guess if you don't do your job right, then you're out. So I get that.
Yeah.
My next one is I want to hear your take on this. I know my take, but I'm in here. I threw it in here just for conversation. Is Melvin Gordon? Do you think he's a buy low candidate?
I think he's a.
Because both of those Denver backs looked pretty bad yesterday.
I mean, Denver looked bad yesterday. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them look good.
Yeah.
I don't think anything about Denver looks good.
Yeah. I don't necessarily believe I think he's definitely, you're able to buy him extremely low because he has not been playing good. Am I going to go out there and send everything for Melvin Gordon? Absolutely not. I don't want him. I don't think he's going to be able to produce.
He's still like a RB2 on the year, but he's had some stinkers in a row.
Yeah.
Lindsey he didn't look good either.
Yeah. I just don't. And Melvin Gordon has a tough schedule later on in the year. His playoff run is not one that I want on my team.
Yeah.
But.
Yep.
All right.
I didn't have him on my list, but that's
my next one is going to come as somewhat a surprise, but I have a method to this madness, and that is one Derrick Henry. Do you believe Derrick Henry is a buy low candidate?
No, you can't buy him low. Same with James Conner. Like, they both had duds of weeks, but
you
know what they are.
Man, let me.
You can't pay. So in our league, for example, you can't buy him low from Heath.
Well,
Heath is a stingy player, like we all are.
Man, but like looking at his games, if he doesn't have that one game against Houston, like I mean, obviously like he's a great running back, like he'll be fine, but it's like 14 points, 8 points. He has a 26-point game, which is great, the 40-point game, but then he has 18, 14, 17, and 6. Is that something
games under double digits? And other than that, every game's been 14 points or higher. Like, that's solid. You can't buy him low. And it doesn't matter what the defense, like even if the defenses are tough.
I would be, if you're Derrick Henry owner is not stingy. If your Derrick Henry owner is not stingy, I think you could definitely go out there and make an offer.
Maybe you can make an offer.
So, like, would you?
There's no way.
So, throwing this out there, for example, if someone offered you James Robinson for Derrick Henry, would you take it?
No.
Interesting. All right. Moving on. So, next one is, we already kind of talked about him. Phillip Lindsay, going to skip over. Next one is Michael Thomas. First game back with the Saints. An absolute beatdown from the Saints on the Buccaneers. Is he a buy low candidate?
Maybe. But at the same time, I feel like that's a tough game to use as a metric for both teams because it was just such a donkey stomp.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard. On my... Where did I have it? Oh, on my buy low, I initially wrote all of the Tampa Bay receivers, and then I changed it to just Chris Godwin. And it's so tough because Thomas just wasn't needed in that game. If it was a close game, Thomas would he'd get the catches. He still had an all right day. He just didn't have the Michael Thomas type of day that you wanted and hoped for when he came back. I mean, it was just such a donkey stomp. And, like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody but the stars were getting points. I mean, Kamara had 13 points, but you're not going to buy him low. Like,
Right. No, absolutely not.
It was just, you had, like, 3 tight ends get touchdown catches. Taysom Hill was really involved there at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a weird game to judge by. So, yeah, I guess you can try to get him low, but
yeah,
his value is going to be there.
I am of the opinion that Michael Thomas is. I just don't think he's going to have that explosive ceiling like he normally has. Like, I think this is probably one of the better, more stable wide receiver groups that the Saints have had in a while. Just with Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders looked really, really good last night. He came up big with them and for that touchdown. I mean, I say big. They won by 30-something points, but came up big. Jared Cooks looked great. Taysom Hill is just kind of out there, just like throwing cards at people. I don't get it, but he's doing great. Sean Payton.
Jared Cook didn't do much. He had
he had a
point.
Catch that was close to a touchdown and then fumbled. Put him right at 2.5 in the day. But my next one.
If this helps with the Thomas question, he still led the team in targets, or him and Kamara were tied for the team in target,
which was
even though he didn't 6.
But
they had 11 different players catch a pass yesterday.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In that game,
and then like 5 different people.
They had
rush, like
7 different people rush the ball, and 3 different people throw a pass.
That's
just an anomaly of a game. Mm-hmm. So don't use that one as your metric.
All right, is Jameis Winston a buy low?
Moving on.
My next one is Josh Jacobs. Do you think Josh Jacobs is a buy low?
I mean, what's low? Because not really.
I mean, let me think. A good example. If someone were to come to you and say, Reb Bright, I'm offering you 1 Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Josh Jacobs. No?
No.
Okay. What about a Joe Mixon for Josh Jacobs?
No.
James Robinson?
Jacobs just gets the ball. Like, I don't...
Yeah?
Even if he does have the stinker weeks, I had this conversation in trade discussions earlier this year because I am a Jacobs owner. But he's going to have those dud games, and that's just going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also going to have the games where he gets 3 touchdowns because he's the best running back on the team. He's seeing less catches than he was early on, which is a bit concerning. But, I mean, this is... Aside from the Tampa Bay game, which is different because their run defense is incredible, this is the lowest amount of touches he's had, which was still 14, and he had a touchdown. So I think they weren't going to overuse him because he was so sick and he had a little knee tweak in the week. But he's still the lead guy, and he's a dog. He had 31 carries the week prior. He's had 27, 25, 23. Like, he just gets the ball, and that alone is just value.
Yeah.
So you can't really buy low on him.
Plays Denver, Kansas City, and Atlanta next week. All pretty good run defenses.
He plays 3 games next week? What the?
He plays Denver, Kansas City, and Atlanta over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
None of those
he
are.
He plays Indy in playoffs and Miami in the potential championship, which is kind of tough. But
yeah, but
he's just kind of one of those guys that you put him in. He's in there every week.
Yeah, I agree. Who else do you have on your list?
So I mentioned James Conner. He was on there, but he's another one. Not really anything to worry about. It was a weird game. They didn't run the ball much. They were down early. And I heard on another podcast that they said, like, maybe it was a game script thing, like a pre-game script thing, where they weren't planning on using him because Dallas should have been over Breeze.
Yeah.
And they just kind of stayed with it. It was weird, though.
Would that lead you...
There was a lot of times where he would have been used.
Yeah.
He would have been better than some of those other backs. But it is what it is.
So with that being said...
My biggest concern with James Conner and the other Steelers is them not playing towards the end of the year. Yeah. Because they are still undefeated. That's my biggest concern. But I don't think there's anything to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, you're still... I mean, all it takes is one game. And, like, man, the Browns and the Ravens and even Cincy, like, all these teams have just... I mean, they have high-powered offenses that can definitely take the Steelers down if they're not careful, which you almost saw with the Cowboys this week. And so all it takes is one loss, and then automatically...
Conner still had 9 carries.
Yeah.
Like he still gets used. It was just a weird game.
But
Dallas played.
So
really
you said
well.
there was like a pre-game script thing. Do you think that's a bit concerning? So like, why do you think that they would hold him out? Or is he nursing an injury that's not really publicized, or is that anything that you're concerned with?
They have to publicize all that, so I don't think so.
Okay.
No, but they teams pre-plan. They like pre-script stuff, and a lot of the times, even if the game doesn't quite go according to plan, they stick to it. And that may have been that, but it's like I said, it's not like he was completely phased out. He still led the team in carries and such. They just didn't run the ball a whole lot because they were playing catch up.
Yeah.
Let me look at the total rushes. So he had 9. McFarland had 3. Benny Snell had 3, and then Johnson and Claypool had a couple of jet sweeps and stuff. So he still had way more than the other running backs. They just didn't run. They needed to score to win. So they passed.
All right, just so we can move on, I'm going to say the name, and I just want you to say no explanation if you think they're buy low. DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Corey Davis.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't buy low? All righty. Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though he's had more bad games than good as of late.
I think you
still know what he can do.
Yeah, with Russ, he's still definitely buy low. Said earlier, Chris Godwin.
Yeah, he's the only one.
No, you wouldn't go by AB?
He's too risky. He's on a leash. Short leash.
Yeah, I would.
I don't care how good he can be. Arians something, but dang.
David Montgomery.
I mean, I think he got a concussion.
He is in the concussion
at
protocol.
the very end of the game.
This is true. Yeah, last quarter concussion.
God,
he has a
low.
Pretty cheddar schedule. We talked about it last week. Extremely low floor, extremely low ceiling. He may be one of those
low.
He's one of those players that I think has a lower ceiling than his floor. I think he has a higher floor than his ceiling actually is, which doesn't make sense at all, but I believe that. Let's say, I offer you try it now. Leonard Fournette for David Montgomery. Would you take it?
No.
No.
I mean, I made that trade.
Yeah, exactly what I asked. All right, Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I'd buy him low.
Okay. And the last but not least, Kenny Galladay.
Yeah. I don't know how long Stafford will be back or be out. Same with Galladay, but when they're both there, he's good to roll.
Yeah, I wouldn't be worried about Stafford. I'd be more worried about Kenny Galladay being back because I think it could be he
was doubtful. I haven't looked into his injuries. I don't have him in anything.
They're believing that it is more of a hip labrum to be injured, which if that's the case, then it's no bueno. So,
yeah.
Alrighty, that is it for our buy low, sell high portion. And so looking ahead into next week's matchups, as far as week 10, lots of good games, or at least hopefully good games.
We looking NFL or looking fantasy?
We're looking NFL right now.
Okay.
So first one, an actual potentially good Thursday night football game, the Indianapolis Colts versus the Tennessee Titans. Indianapolis Colts have looked down, looking to rebound. Tennessee Titans have still looked very not below average, but below what their mark was at the beginning of the season, and they're looking to bounce back. This is being played in Tennessee, so what are you looking for in this game? Who are you going to be looking at?
I mean, Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, those two mainly. Colts don't have much offensively to be excited about. They've scored points, but Phillip Rivers can't throw the ball more than 10 yards, so none of the receivers are really worth looking at. Jonathan Taylor, I guess, and that's about it.
Yeah,
team.
It's interesting because the Titans' defense has just been so.
They've been very
bad
should
recently,
be better,
which is honestly surprising. And I think I saw something where Jadeveon Clowney is actually potentially going to miss this next game, which would do wonders for the Indianapolis rushing attack. But I do think Phillip Rivers, Michael Pittman got pretty involved yesterday. Mo Alley Cox, Trey Burton they weren't great, but for tight ends, I guess they were fine.
You just can't play any of them though.
So it's I'm excited. I think this would be a pretty good game, or it'll be like a 3-2 game, and just be one of those weird anomalies. Who knows? It's gonna be probably just a bad game because it's Thursday night football. But I'm excited for that. I do think that with the Colts. If Darius Leonard is out, then I think that is going to put a huge, huge hole in the Colts defense, considering that he is the captain on the defense, and Derrick Henry is just going to have his way with him. But Ryan Tannehill, I think he's going to look to bounce back with Corey Davis laying a fat goose this weekend. A.J. Brown just being a man playing against JV teams has been really exciting to watch. But that's really it for that game. And then
on Sunday, before we get into the matchups, this is another week of the NFL and their scheduling being super confusing.
Yeah. Like Green Bay just got pushed back to the later game, to the afternoon game.
They did? Mm-hmm. The Green Bay Jags game did?
Yes, they got pushed to 4:25 Eastern.
What? Okay, so now there's only 4 12 o'clock games instead of 5, and there are
5 3 o'clock games
8
instead of
3 o'clock games.
Oh, I can't count. Yeah, that's
with
so
that
interesting.
game being moved back.
I don't know why they're doing that, but I mean, if it means I can watch them a little more effectively, then I'm all here for it.
Oh no, wait! I counted the Sunday night game too, so 7. Still,
yeah. Still a lot of games. I don't understand why. Should play a game a day. Who cares?
Like there's an. I guess they. Let me see. Oh, I guess it's because West Coast teams are going east, and then the West Coast games always start at 3.
Yeah,
they don't ever play.
I don't know. Anyway. I'm just here to set lineups and hopefully win games. So we're getting pretty close to time. We still have one more thing we need to get into. So I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna say the matchup. I want to hear your favorite player from the matchup. So next up we have Washington at Detroit.
Scary Terry.
Ooh, I don't know. J.D. McKissick kind of coming out, and he's looking like he's gonna be Alex Smith's favorite. That's obviously a joke, but yeah, definitely favoring Scary Terry in that. Jacksonville at Green Bay.
The 2 running backs probably are the highlight because Green Bay's running defense is trash. So James Robinson, Aaron Jones, Devontae will probably eat. So will Rodgers, but
Philadelphia at New York.
I mean, I'll stay Sterling Shepard. I don't know who Slay's gonna shadow.
Ooh, you think?
Whether it's, I think he shadowed Slayton last time, so it may be Shepard again.
But last time, well,
Shepard was back.
Shepard was back. You're right. Yeah, I'm gonna go with a Philadelphia player right here. I'm gonna go
Miles
with
Sanders
Miles.
might be back.
I was I'm gonna go with Miles Sanders in that. I think he's gonna come back. New York has had a strangely good running defense, but nevertheless, moving on. Tampa Bay at Carolina.
No CMC, so probably not that.
If CMC,
let's go AB. Let's
bold.
Let's see a little AB.
If CMC is there, I'm obviously gonna go for CMC. But if not, my gut's wanting to tell, or man, I don't know.
AB or Chris Godwin, one of those.
I'm probably gonna go with Robbie Anderson in this game.
Okay.
And again, these aren't saying that like they're gonna have the most points or anything. This is someone I think is going to be extremely exciting to watch and is gonna have just a good day, which I know is very, very vague because we're saying players that have always had good games for the most part. But then we have Denver at Las Vegas, just a clash of the Titans right here.
Skipped over Houston and Cleveland.
No, that was the first. Oh yeah, I did skip over that. Houston and Cleveland.
Thrill Fuller.
Okay.
I
think that's a good one. Cleveland has a horrible secondary, and Will Fuller is bound for 75 yards and a touchdown at some point. I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt. Everybody's going to be focusing on Nick Chubb, his return, but Kareem Hunt has actually been better.
I don't know if Chubb will be able to play. I think he's just going to start practicing again.
Maybe so. As a Kareem Hunt owner, I would very much like that. But at the same time, I mean, stats have shown that Kareem Hunt's been better.
Yeah, we can
Denver at Las Vegas, I'm going to go with... I don't like it, but I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, probably.
Los Angeles and Miami. Jacobs. Yeah, Los Angeles and Miami.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Justin Herbert's actually who I am going with as well.
We'll see. Miami's defense is actually good, so we'll see how good he actually is. Yeah, I don't remember their matchups, like who he's played. That's been a solid team, but this one should be a good test.
Buffalo and Arizona. I mean, this is just gonna. If you have fantasy players on the team, you're loving quarterbacks, the receivers. Honestly, the running backs even. Like, dude, play everybody. Play Dawson Knox. Play Andy Isabella, whoever. Throw it all out there. Put them on your roster. But yeah, Seattle, Los Angeles, really, I think is going to be pretty good for fantasy overall. I mean, if you have the Seattle receivers, you're starting them. Chris Carson should probably be back. He was kind of a last-minute decision, like a Saturday evening decision. And then if you have Los Angeles, you're probably not starting any running backs in this.
You're playing the receivers.
Yeah.
The top 4 receivers in the game. You're playing Lockett and Metcalf and Kupp and Woods. So those 4, I guess.
Then you have San Francisco, New Orleans. You're playing pretty much all your New Orleans players because you probably don't have an option. And then San Francisco, whichever backs are healthy. And Richie James! There we go. Richie James getting his first official start. Trade him for DK Metcalf if you can. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh.
I think this will actually be a good game.
I hope so. I would love for
Pittsburgh
it to be.
Definitely looks beatable after their come from behind victory the past 2 weeks. Joe Burrow's looked incredible. I obviously have a lot of stock in the Bengals.
Yeah.
So I hope that he looks great again.
And they're coming off
a lot of pieces.
They're coming off of a bye, which, I mean, if you're looking at teams that come off byes, they come out hot, they come very, very prepared for Pittsburgh. And if there's a team that you want to come prepared for, it is definitely the Steelers. So, yeah, looking at the Cincinnati side of the ball, I mean, they also have a very bad secondary, so you're playing your Pittsburgh receivers, especially if one of them comes down with an injury designation. Probably going to be Deontay Johnson, if anybody. And then we have Baltimore at New England. This is being recorded before Cam Newton plays, but right now I think right now the only 2 New England players that you can even think about playing are Damian Harris and Cam Newton, and the only Baltimore player that you're playing, or the only 2 you're playing, are Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, and that's only because Mark Andrews it's a tight end wasteland. He's gonna be hit or miss, and so you just have to roll the dice and guess what you're gonna get.
You can play Gus Edwards, I think. He gets all the goal line work. You
can, but you're biting a towel while you're doing it. It's not enjoyable.
He's got a touchdown 3 weeks in a row. He's double-digit carries.
Yeah.
I think he's usable. I almost played him this past week.
I could see a case for it.
He's looked better than Dobbins.
And then lastly,
Ingram's still hurt.
Yeah. And then lastly, you have Minnesota at Chicago. I mean, if David Montgomery's
has a
out,
good defense.
Yeah, if David Montgomery's out, then this is going to be interesting for Chicago.
No Chicago
you play Allen Robinson.
You play Allen Robinson. That's
yep. Yeah, Nick Foles has just looked really bad. On the Minnesota side of the ball, you might want to sit Dalvin Cook, probably give him a rest week. Not really excited about playing him.
Definitely don't want to play him. He's not good.
You're playing Thielen and Jefferson still, just because Jefferson has too high of a ceiling to not do anything. And even this past week, he had like 8 points, half-point PPR, which is fine if for a wide receiver 3. Nothing that's going to just nothing to write home about. But I don't know. I think he's coming down to earth a little bit, and you just have to roll the dice and hope that you get lucky on these weeks.
I agree. By Falcons, Cowboys, Chiefs, Jets.
I mean, yeah, we know you're sad. We know you're sad about not being able to play your Jets, but it is what it is, and I mean, you'll make it through. I promise. Michael P. Ryan will sit comfortably on your bench.
What are we at time-wise?
We are at 53 minutes 37 seconds, so we have just enough time for a Tub update.
Okay, so I have the Tub standings current, like what they will be after tomorrow goes through. I'm assuming the games are going to go according to plan, kind of how they look. So if they change, then whoops, I don't know. So 1 and 2 are me and Binky. We're at 8 and 1. Chris and his super brittle boys and his disaster of a draft.
Man, hats off to you, Chris.
Is in third, a standalone third at 6 and 3, and then we have a 3-way tie for 4th with Eric, DeGroat, and Simeon at 5 and 4, and then our last 2 playoff spots. Making that's if everything goes right tonight, will be Heath at 7th and Cross at 8th.
Oh yeah,
there we go. Head to head.
Whoops.
So we got a really tight playoff race. 4th through 11th is actually really close, and I have some matchups for next week highlighted that are playoff that have playoff implications. So we have DeGroat and Heath play, and they will be DeGroat's one game ahead of Heath going into next week. So if Heath wins that, then they'll be tied at 5-5. Eric and Cross play, and it's the same situation. They both of those matchups are identical records of 5-4 against 4-5. So those are both really big matchups.
Big matchups.
Let me see if I have any kind of bye week. Let me pull that up real quick.
I know at least in mine and Eric's game, Eric will have Todd Gurley on bye, and
that's
I have
That's
no
the only
one.
player on bye on his roster. So DeGroat has Ezekiel Elliott,
Tony Pollard,
and Heath has Patrick Mahomes.
Woo!
On bye. So that'll be a spicy one. That's been Heath's bloodline, lifeline to victory.
Spicy.
It's only 4 games.
Sheesh.
And then Kleb's playing. He's in playoffs right now, really. So he plays Simeon, which isn't a direct playoff implication. It doesn't change the standings, but it will give Kleb an extra game into playoffs. And Simeon's on a little struggle bus after he made a trade.
A few trades that were pretty unfortunate for him, but
yeah,
I don't know. Looking at Clev, I mean he's 3-6 right now, or he will be after, once it officially goes through. But man, he didn't really have much room to.
He didn't have any room to mess up.
Yeah,
but
he needs to win
getting his team in position to succeed.
Yeah.
So Simeon's on a 3-game win streak actually, even with the trades. Not like the trade mattered because he traded CMC and CMC's been hurt and now is hurt again.
Yeah.
Womp womp. But yeah, those are the 3 matchups: DeGroat versus Heath, Eric versus Cross, Simeon versus Clev. Those all have big playoff implications going into playoffs or coming up towards the very end of the season. They're good ones to watch out for. I think they're all going to be really close games. All the teams are really even. Clev wasted another 180,000 point week on an 0-9 Alex.
Oh my goodness!
So let's hope Clev doesn't just score all his points too soon before the games really count.
Hey, been there, done that. Bought that T-shirt, Clev 2017 ship. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, lots of close games. It's really getting interesting. But it's really right now. I mean, if you're not one of those top 3 spots, you are still very much in it. Just one game separates.
I mean,
everybody.
Even Chris's spot is it's losable. He's alone right now, but it's only one game above.
Right, but the odds of him falling out of playoffs is extremely low.
Yeah, right,
absolutely, very, very mere percentage points.
Just out of curiosity,
I think he plays.
He plays John Mark.
Yeah, he does play John.
So John Mark's he's kind of in that hunt too. He'll be 3-6 after this week, which is just one game behind you and Heath.
This is true. This is a true statement.
So him and Dakota are still in this, even though they are trending down. John Mark he had some bye weeks, kind of affect him, I believe. Let me see. I could be lying. What does he have? No, he's ready to go. He's got all his players. He needs Kenyon Drake to come back. That's it.
He is.
He really. I forgot. He has a lot of Dallas players.
Yeah, he does have a lot of Dallas players. But
he can. I mean, he can make that run. Cooper and Lamb looked pretty good this week. If Dallas can kind of keep it up.
Hey, anything is possible here in the bathtub. But yeah, right now, I mean, if you're not one of those top 2 spots, one of those 8-1 teams, you are not really enjoying it. And as for me personally, I've been on an emotional roller coaster. I've taken probably 15, 20 years off my life in the past 2 weeks just with spending so much time trying to construct this roster. Super happy about CMC. And I had my group me on mute, and I opened it up, and I saw where you and DeGroat had text about CMC, and I was like, what happened to him? And I thought I was just going to have to take a sick day because I was physically ill after seeing that.
So I saw last night, Fantasy Doctors made a quick 1-minute YouTube video about CMC's injury. And I was like, that's weird. I didn't know he had an injury. And he was like, it looked like a rib or a collarbone or something.
Yeah, everybody.
Because he landed like sideways this on his shoulder or something. And then that's really all I heard about it. Yeah. And then I checked it this morning and saw more of the updates.
Yeah.
It shocked me because it was towards the end of the game, I think.
Yeah, it was the last drive of the game, which is unfortunate. But the good thing for him is that, I mean, CMC's a tough guy. He's gonna push through it. And with it being right now, he would know if it's anything more severe than a grade 2 AC joint sprain, which if it's a grade 2, he'll sit out definitely until after his bye week, which is week 13, which is the start of playoffs, which is not the
It's
best.
actually not. That's the last week of regular season.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. So if he sits out then, I mean, at least for me in particular, I'm really sad, but I think I might have enough juice just to squeak into playoffs. But yeah,
you need all those weeks you can get.
I do need all those weeks I can get, but it is. So, I mean, it'll be close. But I mean, if you're still watching this, if you're not a part of the tub and you're a CMC owner, from someone who is also a CMC owner, I'm resting a little easier from what multiple doctors that have just kind of watched it says and how they treated it and how it reacted. I don't think it's a broken rib. Don't think it's a broken clavicle. I think it's just going to be a grade 1 AC joint sprain. But
there you go.
Red, are there any other final remarks for today's episode that you would like to leave with?
I think that's it. Let's go enjoy this Jets-Patriots game.
Oh yeah. Hopefully you aren't banking on any of these players to get you a win, but if you are, best of luck.
You probably weren't eyeing playoffs anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if you like the video, drop a like, drop a subscription, turn the bell on, do whatever everybody else asks you to do. Leave a comment if you want. Go follow us on our socials, which are down here at the bottom of the screen. And we will see y'all next week. So have a great rest of your Monday evening.
Peace.